All right, Sports Lens are back here with George Groves for the lowdown on the latest in the world, the tumultuous world of boxing that's ever changing, as we know. We'll start with Canelo, I suppose, because he's been in the news, but he hasn't been well, he has fought recently, but I don't think he'll be fighting until next year. But there has been talk that maybe he'll be getting in the ring with Conor McGregor. I don't know how you feel about that. Is that something you would expect to see, or is that just more talk rather than reality?
Yeah, I don't. I still see Canelo as a legitimate boxer who appreciates real boxing. You know, he's at the very top of professional boxing. You know, he's still the number one in the world in terms of his value and his draw. And you know, it was almost unfortunate for him the way he sort of cleared up the super middleweight division so quickly and so effortlessly, that he's almost felt like he'd run out of opponents. But he hasn't. You know, there are options there for him. He's just fought Charlo, and when we come away from that Charlo fight, you're like, right, okay, Charlo, exceptional talent, too small. You know, just and
he was supposed to fight his twin brother, was he?
That's what I feel like. That's what everyone thought.
Yeah.
But they announced, you know, the smaller brother. I get Jamel and Jamal confused, but the light middleweight unified champion. And then so it was always going to be the case. And you know, as someone from boxing who now works on the other side of the ropes, you're thinking maybe there's more to it that I have not been witness to, that I'm not privy to, and maybe Charlo has a chance. You're asking around people who might be a little bit more in the know, and there was that feel of, well, maybe Charlo, he's bigger, he's taller than Canelo. Maybe he's supposed to be extraordinarily big for the weight. It's tough for him to make that light middleweight. Maybe he knows something we don't, and he's picked this fight because he's got a chance. But he came. Canelo was just too good, too big, too strong, and you know, Charlo decided to better to just see out a points lost than have a go, which was disappointing. And disappointing for Canelo, I think, because then he's like, well, it's not my fault. I showed up. I done my bit. Yeah. For me, right now, looking at his options, I think everything as a Mexican fighter should be built around Cinco de Mayo. The two Mexican holidays that are big nights of boxing out in the States. And to have him versus David Benavidez, who is the Mexican monster, right now is the right fight for that. It's the right fight for boxing. It's the right fight, I think, for Canelo, because it should be a challenge. And you know, Benavidez, it feels like he's been around for quite a while, but it's only now where he sort of seems to be in real form.
He's got a fight coming up with Demetrius Andrade, hasn't he?
He's got to get through Andrade first, and that's not a foregone conclusion. Andrade's a very good fighter, very skillful fighter. I watched him win a Junior Olympics gold medal when we were 15, 16, and he beat Sean Potter and Miles Shinkwin from the UK on the way to gold that week. So even back then, you're like, oh, this guy's a talent, and it was. So that's a tough fight for Benavidez.
That's November, isn't it? So by then, coming through that, then he's got to be looking at, surely it would be his time. He would be thinking,
So I mean, there's certain dates in the calendar that boxing and real legitimate professional boxing want to hold on to. Like, let's get it straight. And I'm sure we're going to get onto this stuff soon, but there's now competition, you know, in terms of, you know, celebrity boxing, YouTube boxing, sort of the crossover boxing that we're seeing time and time again, and legitimate professional boxing don't want to lose these dates to these characters. So obviously Conor McGregor versus Alvarez is an absolute mismatch, and it's not going to be like when he fought Mayweather, and Mayweather can sort of play the game and pull him round. And
it'd be a destroying situation.
I don't think it's not in Canelo's nature. He's not going to take it easy. So he's going to take his head off, and if that ends in a round or two, no one benefits from it apart from the two fighters who would have made extraordinary money. But I don't think
there's no rush for it, is there? Really, they could wait, sort of.
Yeah, well, McGregor won't be able to sell the story the same this time around. A lot of people bought into him. A lot of people thought he had a chance against Mayweather, not realising enough about the disciplines, not understanding enough about how boxing is very different from all the other combat sports. They're all different from each other, and I think Canelo, for me, he might box again this year or the start of next year. He might not. Might be waiting for that.
It's kind of twice a year generally. Isn't it? Yeah. Do you think Terence Crawford's and Canelo will get it on at some point? Do you think you see that happening?
Well, I mean, I think Crawford's the best pound-for-pound fighter in the world at the moment, but he is a lot smaller than Alvarez, who copes with, he doesn't have height and reach necessarily on his side, but he's a big dude. Like, he's strong. He's fought at light heavyweight. I don't think that fight gets made. And if it does, I don't think I think it's a step too far for Crawford. Unless he's thinking about sort of being sharp and sort of nicking a point to win. I don't think he could big enough to put a dent in Alvarez.
This is kind of the problem for Canelo, is that you got Dimitri Bivol is too big, but then Terence Crawford's too small. He's kind of stuck in the middle, isn't he? Really? Like, do you think if Bivol came down to his weight, they could have a rematch there?
Yeah, I mean, if Bivol comes down to super middleweight, I think that's tough on his body. I think that takes away a lot from him. And if then Alvarez beats him at super middleweight, you got to think to yourself, well, that's obviously just because of the weight. You're sort of trying to handicap fighters to make it a more even fight, and that happens when fights get made at catch weights, when guys are in different divisions.
True.
But I think there's still, boxing always comes. It's always there. There's always some new prospect coming through, and there'll be plenty of action for Alvarez at the super middleweight limit, whether it be the winner of Benavidez and Andrade, both two great fighters that will give him a hard test.
Yeah.
Whether he then decides to move up to light heavyweight and challenge Bivol, there's a lot of talented light heavyweights in the world right now.
Yeah.
So he'll be chasing them fights, but there's a business side to it too. I understand you've got to chase the right fights, the big names.
He's still hungry for it though, isn't he? You can tell he's still hungry.
I think so, yeah. I mean, the last performance was great.
Yeah.
He didn't really come out of second gear, did he? So I don't think it's not like the body's failing him. It wasn't a tough enough test to see where he's at, I think, in his career, in his life. But that might come. He might have to step up if he is going to fight, an Andrade or a Benavidez next, or
time will tell.
Exactly.
But we've got it's not this weekend, but the coming weekend, Tyson Fury's back in action against Francis Ngannou. Obviously, it's a fight that's garnered a lot of speculation, some controversy as well. I think Ngannou is 8-1 to win that, which is a longer price than any Premier League team is this weekend to beat their opponent, which kind of sums it up. He's obviously a massive outsider. In your view, has he got anything more than a puncher's chance in this?
No, I mean, everyone is looking for something different answer, but he hasn't got anything apart from a puncher's chance. I've seen footage of him in the octagon, in the cage, and he's definitely a powerful guy, and he finishes a lot of people with his hands, with a punch. But boxing in the octagon is not like boxing in the ring. It's night and day. He does have a puncher's chance, and if the odds are favourable enough, you'll be like, why not? Because Fury's been dropped before in the past. He's usually always got up off the floor to win. He has. He's always got up off the floor to win as a professional, but he does get caught. He does go over. He might not be switched on for this fight. He might not be taking it seriously. He's made the fight, we believe, or we've been told, with USYK for all the belts. It's the biggest fight in heavyweight boxing. So he might be looking past next weekend at USYK, which might come around real quick. If it's going to be out in Saudi, it might be this side of Christmas.
Yeah.
So
quick turnaround potentially, yeah.
Quick turnaround. And, you know, if this is, I think we'll find out on the night if it's just an exhibition, they're going to pull each other around, they're going to sort of go towards the pantomime route rather than a legitimate fight route. We'll see. But, you know, Fury hasn't had, you know, he hasn't put a foot wrong of recent times, you know, since beating Wilder in the third fight. He come back to the UK, he's beat Dillian White comfortably, beat Derek Chisora even more comfortably, but it feels like he hasn't boxed for a long time. I know he likes to tick over and stay in the gym and stay active, but in terms of having a fight, it's been quite some time.
It's been a while,
you know, it's fascinating. It's two big guys. Fury is interesting, he's entertaining, so you can see why the fight's been made. But you know, you got to imagine that it's not going to be competitive.
Yeah, well, like you say, it's one thing punching someone in the UFC in the octagon, but trying to hit Tyson Fury when he's, you know, with his
them
moves,
guys, they don't know how to defend themselves against punches.
Yeah,
they don't really necessarily know how to throw a punch, but it's like hitting a bag sometimes. See they put maximum effort into a shot, and the guys don't ride it. Their feet are not set. They take it full flush, and they're smaller gloves and the rest of it.
Yeah.
So you see, it's fun to watch. See devastating knockouts in the UFC
for sure.
But it's because the guys don't know how to take a punch.
Yeah. Well, Big John Fury reckons this could be Tyson Fury's fastest ever knockout. Do you think there's a risk that anyone that's buying a pay-per-view is just getting fleeced if it's over in 30 seconds, or the other end of the spectrum, if it is kind of just like a wrestling match, they're just kind of joking around, like taking it seriously?
Well, yeah, I mean, you know, lots of times a pay-per-view event, whether it's boxing or not, you're sold a story, and it doesn't always manifest into that.
True.
But
some of the promotion's been good, to be fair. The video, like it's been very well promoted.
They spent money on the production, you know, the advertising, the promo videos are good, interesting, and it feels like it's been a while since, you know, pay-per-view boxing has sort of spent that sort of money and put that much effort in, which is, so it's good. It's entertainment, but it always leaves that question mark of like, is it just style over substance? I don't think it'll be the quickest knockout of Fury's career, but I'm not sure how quick what his record is.
He's not really known for rapid knockouts, is he, to be honest?
No, so
not in recent times.
He doesn't really come out and just try and take someone's head off in the first minute anyway. So I think there might be a cautious start from Fury because he knows the guy in front of him can punch. He knows he's got a puncher's chance, but Ngannou, you would believe, will be, you know, he'll be gassing after a round or two, 3 max. Big guy, not used to that sort of fighting, which is a different, you know, totally different rhythm, totally different energy system than you get in, you know, many other sports. You know, likewise, if Fury was in a cage with him, I'm sure Fury would gas out in seconds because it's a different style of fighting,
different
which
stamina required.
Exactly, So, but we'll see. I think,
bringing up Big John Fury again, because obviously he's been putting a shift in to promote this fight the same way he did with KSI and Tommy Fury. He said he's planning to confront traitor Mike Tyson, and he wants to get in a ring with him and show him a thing or two. But is this another example of boxing kind of morphing into WWE with these kind of antics?
I think there are these characters in and around boxing, and the Fury get-up, the Fury family in particular. It depends if you enjoy it, you say they're very good at it, and if you don't, you say it's not very good. But between Dad, Tyson, brother Tommy, you know, it's more pantomime, isn't it? It's more WWE than professional boxing. Especially now you've got the heavyweight champion of the world who's in an exhibition fight out in Saudi. But you know, I think I don't know if that fight comes off. I think he's been calling it for quite some time, John Fury.
Obviously, he had a decent career.
He had I've never seen any of his fights, but I know he did turn pro. That said, if Tyson accepts the fight, it means that he wants to win, and he'll take his head off in a matter of seconds.
You would think. Well, I was going to move on to, what do you think Mike Tyson training Ngannou would have brought to his game? Do you think I don't know how much training Mike Tyson's done in his career, but obviously he's got a good knowledge of boxing. But I suppose, what do you think?
If he has trained him, you know, and it's not just like for the cameras, he's actually got in, you know, I don't know how much time Mike Tyson has to dedicate to becoming a trainer. It's quite hard.
Yeah.
But he would be able to give him an awful lot of knowledge. Mike Tyson is an encyclopedia of boxing. He's, you know, he's from that era of, you know, he studies tapes. You know, he talks about it from an early age. Being a young boy, just watching the old tapes of the old fighters, studying boxing. He understands boxing. Sometimes you gotta just be in the ring to think and feel it, and not everyone who understands it can sort of then articulate it and teach it.
Yeah, true.
But I think Tyson can. You know, you listen to him talk. He's at times philosophical, spiritual, but certainly knows how to fight, understands, and someone who would always command fighters' respect.
Yeah.
You know, you'd always listen to what Mike Tyson had to say.
Definitely.
You know, he's been there, done it, under the spotlight and performed. So, yeah, if he just gets him off, it might just be one or two combinations that are like, this is how you set it up, this is how you get it off.
Yeah.
Just set it up and get it off, and then
Make
that
sure you
might
don't
work,
get-
and that's enough.
Yeah,
you know?
and don't get hit on the coming back out. But yeah, you never know. I suppose remains to be seen. But if he has given him anything, then hopefully it gives him a better chance.
Absolutely.
Talking about kind of pay-per-view and the amount of units that KSI and Tommy Fury sold, I think 1.3 million box office buys, which is obviously pretty incredible numbers. We're talking about misfits there and the way they're kind of embracing, boxing and influencer boxing are kind of embracing each other. Do you think there could come a time where misfits are kind of keeping the zone afloat, propping them up, or do you think boxing will always hold its own?
Well, I haven't seen the books like at the zone, so I'm not sure how in the hole they are. You know, they were the ones who took the brave step of sort of setting up a platform rather than just a channel.
Yeah.
And they're finding their feet. They're spending a lot of money, and the numbers, the pay-per-view numbers, you know, you're only privy to the right answer when you're allowed to audit the show. So I've heard of vastly different numbers, but they've all been good numbers. No one's around and said that they did bad numbers. I mean, 1.3 million is, if that's just for UK buys alone, that's like extraordinary.
I think that's worldwide. I do.
Yeah, that'll be worldwide. I think
Yeah.
worldwide was maybe like between 700 and 800, but even then that'll be, I guess, 3 times what Chris Eubank Jr. did against Liam Smith.
Yeah, you would think
in
so.
a rematch. So there's not the problem with boxing in the UK at the moment. There's not a lot of fights that are pay-per-view sort of worthy. There's not a lot of fighters out there who are sort of standalone pay-per-view fighters. And now where there is an additional promoter on the mix, you know, like so you've got Ben Shalom at Boxer, you've got Frank Warren at sort of TNT, and Eddie Hearn with DAZN. It just means that them pay-per-view fights that might come along a little bit harder to make.
Yeah.
And you've got 3 separate platforms jostling for
supremacy, I suppose. Yeah.
So sometimes not non-pay-per-view, but good weekends of boxing, they clash, they fall on the same night. Disappointing for the fight fan. You know, they've got to record and watch something on, you know, that's not live.
Yeah.
And I was shocked that this like Misfit DAZN stuff would be pay-per-view. I mean, it had to be, otherwise what's the point? But it would be pay-per-view and be doing the numbers it's doing. I don't think... I watched the last fight, the last show with Tommy Fury and KSI, because I can't keep saying I've never seen either of them fight. So I watched it, and I've been to a KSI fight. I went to KSI versus Joe Fournier, and I thought the production there was pretty cool. In terms of a live event, it was good. It was very good. But then I was wondering, is that because I'm sitting behind Liam Payne from One Direction, and then you've got this celebrity on this side and that celebrity, and then so it attracts the celebrity audience, which just makes something a little bit more exciting.
Of course, slickly produced as well. It all looks very, very smooth, isn't it?
Yeah, I mean, sometimes I wonder if I'm just getting old, a bit of a dinosaur. Cause a lot of the stuff is lost on me. I don't get this bit,
right.
and I'm some things I feel like I appreciate a little bit of the nostalgia. You know, like this was all how it always was. Do we really need to reinvent the wheel here?
Yeah.
But what I can understand and vouch for is the quality of the boxing, and the two main events, like the Chief Sport, the main event, the standard boxing was terrible.
Yeah. Okay.
So the Paul fight against the MMA guy,
Dylan
Dennis, really bad.
Yeah, it was
really bad.
Yeah.
So and the main event was poor. They were just holding, you know.
Yeah. By the way, the Logan Paul Dylan Dennis fight ended was a bit of a WWE style with him punching him on the canvas and stuff like that, wasn't it?
Yeah, and if it's just clickbait for people to just meander through their day with, okay. But if you've asked people to pay for it, you got to deliver a bit more.
True.
And I'm not sure at what point their audience, so like maybe a younger audience who maybe not necessarily that engaged with professional boxing, but now become a little more aware of it. I'd be like, well, actually, I expected a lot more. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Expected a lot more. But boxing's, you know, maybe for its being good and maybe being bad, is that it is the sport where you haven't got to be that good to do it.
True, it's got to be brave.
I think the equivalent is like rap music, because everyone released a rap album. I don't know enough about rap, you know, rap or hip hop. That's what I was like. Yeah. Maybe you can fudge it because they've all got a rap album out, and then they've all got boxing shorts and gloves in their locker as well.
I like that comparison. I suppose you can just get producers to make a beat, and then you can just have a go at rapping on it. I
think so, yeah. And then you can just get a pair of gloves and find someone to have a bit of a dust up with.
True.
But
good comparison.
you know, and it will get tired really quickly. You know, there was a dude in the undercards calling out Ryan Garcia, ain't gonna work, and you got like Paul calling out, or someone calling out Canelo, or so they're calling out the big guys that it's not real.
No.
It's not real. And then, you know, people will be watching this going, this is not fun to watch. You know, and it's because maybe they're trying to raise their levels a little bit to make it a little bit more professional.
Yeah.
But they're not professional, and you realise that boxing, you can't fudge it because there's too much. It's a high level skill.
Skill level's too
sport.
high. Yeah.
So,
well, this kind of leads me on to another fight that's been sort of talked about, but realistically, is it going to happen? It's Wayne Rooney and Jake Paul, because obviously Wayne Rooney likes his boxing.
Yeah.
But I mean, he's a footballer. He's not a boxer. We've seen him get knocked out in his kitchen before, haven't we? So, is that a fight you'd turn up to see if someone said, you know, come down and watch Jake Paul and Wayne Rooney get it on?
Yeah, I mean, who knows? Like, who knows? You'd want to see a bit more of them, a bit more of Wayne Rooney, see what he's like. But I mean, when I was a kid and they were talking that Wayne Rooney he come from his brother's box, or he's from a boxing background. The missus was watching Wagatha Christie last night, and apparently Colleen's dad was a boxing coach, so there might be a little link up there.
Yeah.
Sometimes when they're ex-sports people, you think, well, they got a better chance. You know, their body's a little bit more conditioned. But we've seen, you know, combat sports who should be the closest thing to boxing epically fail in a boxing ring. So.
Might be a better kind of matchup, seeing as Jake Paul can't really box, can he? But
yeah.
obviously Wayne Rooney's probably not the fittest right now, considering how long he's been out of the game. So maybe it could be a good matchup. You
know, I try not to throw anything under the bus and be like, you know, some sweeping statements like it's goddamn awful, I'm never going to watch any of it. You just try and call it in the moment. And if that fight got made, I would be up for that. That'd be the most exciting Jake Paul fight that he's had that I would want to watch. You know, Wayne Rooney, he's likable, so you'd want him to pace Paul. But at the same time, if he got a pacing as well, you'd be like, oh, I'd be up for watching that as well.
Yeah, so either way.
Either way, I'll be up for watching that. But what the problem they will have sooner or later is that these guys don't want to get iced on TV, so they're just gonna hug and fudge their way through fights, and then it's like, well, what are we watching?
Right.
You know, I'm not staying up till 11:30 at night to watch KSI come out in a Lamborghini with Prime written all over it. That's not enough for me. That's not enough.
Shield with diamonds in it.
Yeah, the most expensive gum shield in the world right now.
Exactly, yeah.
Fabulous.
Yeah.
You didn't need it. No one landed a punch.
Right. Yeah, so it was a bit of a damp squib in the end. We're talking about boxing, the way it's been promoted and stuff. We've seen Showtime have been in the game for 37 years, but now they're walking away. Do you think, is that a concern for boxing that you've seen people like Showtime who have been good for boxing deciding that they don't want to be involved anymore?
Yeah, it's massive. It's massive. I haven't really got to grips with exactly what that means. Like, I want to sort of investigate further, but you know, it spells disaster, really. You know, boxing has to thrive in the States for it to filter out to the rest of the world.
True.
It just has to. You know, these sort of sports, boxing in particular, you want it to do well in the American market, and you know, you'll be fed fighters from all around the world. You know, countries, all the South American countries. You know, now the Eastern European countries, as well as the UK and others who love their boxing. So we will produce the fighters, but the history of the sport is in the United States. If they don't have major broadcasters backing it, then it's going to suffer in it. You know, I remember Germany had a big boxing market. You know, it was a place to earn a lot of money, and then they sort of pulled the plug on boxing from their mainstream channels. They never sort of really developed their pay-per-view model, and Sat Eins, which was, it was hard to explain. It was the equivalent of maybe our Sky One. Not quite. It was more terrestrial than Sky One, but not full terrestrial.
Okay.
And then now, Germany have no world champions. They don't produce any talent. So it's a market that's gone. So yeah, you want, you know, and I don't think DAZN is big enough or will ever be big enough to fill the void, or another company like it. You want, we're still a generation or two away from getting to that stage. You know, you want major, like Sky in the UK back boxing. When Eddie Hearn left, they still back boxing. They brought in a new team, Ben Shalom. They understand what boxing has going for it is that people are used to paying for it, as in a pay-per-view. They'll pay for a pay-per-view.
That's true.
They just got to create pay-per-view fights. So
seems to be hard to do at the moment.
And the States, I think, the States is like $100 a pay-per-view. So you're asking people to shell out a lot of money. So maybe that needed to be readdressed out there. But I've got to be honest, I'm not bang up to date with, you know, what company owns what, whether, you know, ESPN have bought Showtime, who have, you know, they're about to get incorporated by Paramount or Disney or something like that. But I think boxing will survive. I think boxing will come back. Someone will see an opportunity and be like, let's put boxing on. You know, promoters get a lot of grief in terms of being sort of painted as like, you know, bad people, but usually they're very clever, slick, charismatic entrepreneurs who will get something over the line. And why would you not?
Well, look at Frank Warren reinventing himself so many times over the years. Someone that you worked with, I think, at the beginning of your career, is that right? And then you kind of made the move to work with Eddie Hearn subsequently. I think you had a European title fight on the line at the time you made that decision. Is that a decision that you would make in the current climate if you were at that stage of your career now? Because I think obviously kind of the power has shifted a bit, do you feel?
Yeah, no, so I turned professional and signed a deal with David Hay, which was Haymaker. And at the time he had an output deal with Setanta, which went bust. So Setanta Sport was a new thing. There was a lot of money injected into it. They wanted to show boxing. They backed boxing. They backed David Hay, and off the back of that, he built a stable, and I wanted to be part of that. That sort of imploded within a year, and I'm still learning the business at this stage. in the slipstream with David Hay, and get opportunities off the back of being associated with him, being backed by him, by people sort of saying that I can do well. Do I need to pause? Is that battery gone? Right, okay.
Seeing the potential in you, but obviously, David Hay helping facilitate that.
We got to the point where I beat James DeGale for the British title, almost as a free agent. So I had a management contract with Adam Booth, who worked at Haymaker, part of Haymaker, but I didn't have a promotional deal anymore because they weren't putting on TV shows after Satanta. I would box on a David Hay card when he boxed on Sky Box Office. So I'd been chief support for 2 of his fights, and then sort of done the rounds. I'd boxed on Frank Maloney shows before he became Kelly Maloney. Boxed on I think definitely a Matchroom card or 2, Sauron cards out in Germany, Golden Boy shows out in Vegas. But then I got to a point where I'd done a deal with Frank Warren. First time I'd done a long-term deal since turning pro. I did a 3-year deal with Frank Warren, and we had a couple of issues, and we decided to part ways because the idea was always to sort of try and be contract free. You don't want to be tied down. You don't really want to be tied in for a 5-year deal. It's different in football when they say, right, you're going to pay you this much for 5 years every week. Whereas like you sign a long-term deal for a promoter, you then got to rely on them to get you the deals, and sometimes the market shifts and a new player comes in, they've got a load of money to spend. You kind of want to be dynamic and be able to shift and move. So once I'd left Frank, I only did like a 1 or 2 fight deal with Hearn.
Oh, is that what it was?
Yeah, it was. I fought on a Sauron card, then I did a 2 fight deal with Hearn where I boxed on. I can't remember whose card it was. I boxed down the card somewhere, might be like a Darren Barker bill or something, and then I boxed chief support for Cole Frutch.
That was
versus Mikhail Kessler.
That's right.
But it might have had the feel of he's done it. He's left Warren and done a deal with Matchroom, but I didn't really.
Okay. And
then even I thought the next fight is against Frutch. That was on just a 1-fight deal. The next fight against Frutch again, 1-fight deal. And then I actually signed with the Sauerlands, but the Sauerlands weren't promoting. It was a real struggle to promote in the UK because we couldn't get TV, so I ended up boxing a lot of Matchroom cards. But at the time, I think when I signed with Warren was the premier promoter in the country. He had the pay-per-view dates. I just headlined on pay-per-view against James DeGale. Literally, I signed with him on the Friday, and on the Monday he launched Box Nation.
Oh, so I was like, that was okay. The pay service.
So that was a subscription channel.
That's right.
But it was a physical channel. It was like before the days of apps. But it was difficult. It was difficult for him, difficult for all the fighters who went with him. A lot of fighters left when they could. They wanted to be back on Sky. And back on Sky meant with Eddie Hearn. Eddie Hearn had sort of very cleverly sort of managed to get an exclusive deal with Sky. Before then, they'd have Warren, Hatton had a deal. I think Frank Maloney might have still had a deal. There were maybe 4 promoters on Sky, but Hearn said, "Nah, undercut them all." Said, "I'll give me the reins, and I'll build you something good," and he did. And then through the process, obviously promoted himself really well. He come from obscurity, really, in the boxing world, to the prominent promoter. Built the likes of Kell Brook, Darren Barker, signed Frotch and built Frotch, got him back as a world champion, and then many others since. So I think if the time was now, it's a difficult one because you're like, well, definitely don't ever write off Frank Warren because he's still going, and essentially he has the biggest name in British boxing, Tyson Fury.
It's a gamble that paid off, wasn't it?
It's certainly a gamble that's paid off. And he knows boxing. Like he has brought fighters through from start to finish, and Eddie Hearn started to do that a little bit more, and he's got proof that he's done that. Hearn's moved all his stable to DAZN, which is a new exciting platform. They get a lot of traction online, but is equate to people knowing who you are in the street and then they're going to buy tickets to your fight.
Yeah, not
I
necessarily.
think fighters have suffered. Lawrence Okoli, Joshua Buatzi, maybe others, I'm trying to think now, who have sort of, you'd think would never leave Matchroom, and they've left Matchroom to get back on Sky. And Sky have sort of tried to do another exclusive deal with Ben Shalom, who signed up a load of talent, and he's putting on shows. He's doing okay. I think no one's really thriving at the moment.
It's kind of different to how it was 10 years ago when it felt like boxing was in a really dynamic state at that point. But you mentioned Buatzi there. Obviously, unfortunately for him, his fight this week against Azeez isn't going ahead due to an injury to Azeez. But people within boxing have speculated that there might be different reasons behind that. I think Eddie Hearn sort of was implying that ticket sales hadn't been great because it was supposed to be at the O2. Do you think there's an element of that truth in that, or do you think it's just the injury is the injury and that's had to be moved to York Hall as a result directly?
Yeah, I was at Sky when it sort of was starting to break that Azeez had a back issue and that the fight was looking more and more unlikely, and they had to be dynamic in how they get this over the line. I think there's a lot more compassion now for the fighters than there used to be, and it's not all about the bottom line. So Sky were adamant that they wanted the undercard to still fight, the show to go ahead. The show must go on. Was Dan Azeez going to be fit? It didn't seem like the right fight to make at that point. I think he legitimately is injured. 100% he hasn't been asked to take a bullet, to step aside because ticket sales were poor.
Is it a weird one though to get that kind of injury in the week leading up to the fight? Because you would think you wouldn't be doing heavy work.
I don't know exactly what the injury is, but I think he's had a back spasm.
Okay,
right. So
So potentially the fight might not be delayed, postponed by too long.
Yeah, who knows? Who knows what the issue is with the back? If it's just a spasm or something, but he probably got a back issue. And then, they did the pay-per-view card recently with Eubank versus Smith, and we know Smith had to postpone because he had back issues. And then he had a flat performance. So you don't really want to, you don't want fighters to fight when they're not 100%.
No, of course.
They will do. They always will do. And, if you need fighters to be perfect each and every time, we'd never have boxing. Right?
True, very true.
But I think it's a brave decision from Azeez. He's had to, work really hard for this. It's a big opportunity for him. So for him to say, I'm not quite right, I'm going to postpone it, knowing that the light heavyweight scene's, thriving, he might get left behind, he might get left out.
It's been a tough one for him.
Tough decision for him, yeah. But they've moved it to York Hall, which makes sense, It makes sense, if people are going to ask, I think in the T's and C's and the small print, it's subject to change. So you buy your ticket, it's subject to change. As long as they put on a bit of boxing, you have to like it or lump it. But they know that that's not really fair. They can't pull the main event, which the vast majority of people want to go and see. But they've got Luau versus Isaac Chamberlain, cruiserweights, which is a very interesting division for Sky right now. British title fight. That's good enough to be a main event. But they've decided that it's not good enough or big enough to go to the O2, so they've pulled the plug and moved it to York Hall. I think they've put together a couple of York Hall shows recently, so that's probably given them confidence to do that. And it makes sense, right? It makes sense a lot. In a lot of business terms, it makes sense for them to do that. But, if York Hall wasn't an option, I think they still would have gone ahead and done the O2. Probably hemorrhaged a lot of money.
That's not a good
and it might not look great on TV.
True.
But I think Sky are back in boxing. I think, it's been a steep learning curve for Ben Shalom. Didn't know a lot about him before he got the job at Sky. I still don't really know a lot about him.
He's doing all right though. It's good to see more people.
And there's boxing going on. There's boxing going on.
Yeah.
So. You'd rather that than not. And you definitely don't want Sky to back out boxing. I think Sky will always be holding up boxing here in the UK.
A couple of quick ones just to finish off. Anthony Joshua might be fighting Manuel Char next. What do you make of that fight potentially? I'm not sure too much about him.
I've got to be honest, I haven't seen Manuel Char in a long time.
No.
I'm not sure how old he is. I feel like he's been around a long time. But he's always there or thereabouts. I think he could be a decent fight.
Yeah.
You know, I thought that they were going to make Joshua versus Wilder. I think that's a great fight.
That's what everyone wants, doesn't it? But it's sadly not looking like it's happening. But
it felt like maybe Wilder needed one more warm-up fight, which was supposed to take place in October, but I've heard nothing. It's weird. I think you can imagine if everyone's waiting for their phone to ring and it to be someone from Saudi to offer you an excruciatingly crazy, eye-watering amount of money, then it's hard to focus on anything else. Like, I should sit and wait for the phone to ring.
Yeah, that's what's going on. You reckon people just waiting it out? Yeah,
it could be.
Time. Yeah,
it could be. But man, I think I can't see Machar causing Joshua any problems whatsoever. And if it's these sort of fights, then get Joshua out every 2 months. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Just keep the name out there, keep it floating, keep the brand up, go back like you go back in time, and then fighters from bygone era would be out regularly. So people, you know, you tour him, take him up and down, take him around Europe or something.
Good point.
But you don't really want to wait 6 to 8 months for Machar.
Yeah, it's not a fight that's going to get people, you know, salivating.
Exactly.
Like that. Another quick one, just final one. How do you think Tyson Fury and Usyk plays out if they finally do get in the ring?
If they box, I think it's still a little bit of an if. It's coming before this exhibition next week. But I think Usyk beats him. You know, I think Usyk beats him out. I think Usyk is the best fighter in the heavyweight division. Sure, he's given away a lot of height and reach. Fury's vastly experienced. He's always rose to the occasion. You know, his standout performance for me would always be going to Germany and beating Klitschko. When, you know, Klitschko seemed unbeatable. You know, he believed in himself and he had got his tactics right, and he might have even got the jump on Klitschko, who underestimated him. But you know, that's an impressive win. He's got the trilogy with Wilder, where the second fight he boxed particularly well, and if he approaches an Usyk fight like he fought in the second Deontay Wilder fight, it'd be very difficult to beat. But I'm not sure he will, and I think Usyk will find an answer. He's always found an answer.
He's got it there. I think you've got the technical aspect of boxing down to a T.
Yeah,
seemingly locked down.
Yeah, he's
I suppose if he does beat him, takes the belts, then if AJ and Tyson Fury get in the ring, then there won't be any belts on the line, which would be a bit of a shame. Or next year. So.
Yeah, it could be. I mean, who knows? Who knows? But I think Usyk is a clever fighter, brilliant fighter. He will be fully prepared, knowing everything that Fury can bring, and have an answer for it.
Well, let's see what Tyson Fury has to say if he hears what you said. But yeah, it'll be interesting to see, and hopefully the heavyweight division, you know, gets these fights on, and us as boxing fans get to see him. But George Rose, thank you very much for that. Good to have your insight into boxing again, and best of luck for the rest of your year.
Thank you. Thanks for having us.
Nice one.